Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. How are you doing? My name is Bray and you are watching All Things Bray. Welcome. So, this is the second part in our 5-part series about 25 lessons I learned under 25 while I was 25. Yeah, we've done the part 1. If you've not watched it, it's linked right here. Please click on the link and watch it and then get back to this video. Okay, I'm pausing so that you can do that. Okay, now that everybody that is still watching has already watched part 1, welcome. I hope you still remember the 5 lessons that we talked about in our last video. If you do remember, please write them down in the comment section from memory. Don't go and check. Just let me know that you're following this series. Okay? Now, for those who may have forgotten, we're just going to do a quick recap about it. But before we continue, please don't forget to like this video. Don't forget to share it so that this goodness you're about to consume can reach a lot of people. And we can tell the algorithm that this is the kind of content that should be shared, right? Now, if you haven't subscribed, what are you even doing? Okay, please subscribe. Without further ado, let's delve right into today's video. Welcome back. I said we are going to do a brief recap of part 1, right? Okay, so I'm just going to run through the first 5 lessons. I'm not going to mention them in chronological order like I said last time, but let's go. Number 1 is that I was made on purpose for a purpose. Number 2 is that doing anything for the applause is absolutely not worth it. Number 3 is that I'm stronger than I give myself credit for. And the last lesson we covered in the last video is that God is real, God is true, and He's very intentional about me. I hope you can say the same for yourself because it's very, very true. Now, let's commence today's video. We're talking about 5 lessons, which would be from number 6 to number 10 in our 25 lessons, right? And the first lesson that we'll be talking about today is that friendships are important. I learned this over and over again over the years because I've lost friendships, I've gained friendships. I have had people who have been friends for as long as I can remember, and I have had people who become my friends in the blink of an eye. Fun fact about me: when I know, I know. I don't take a lot of time to decide if a person is my friend. I can already sense your vibe from the beginning. I can already sense your I can already sense your aura. My spirit recognizes it's keen, right? Almost immediately. One of my very best friends, I remember the first day I met her, I had a sleepover at her house. This does not happen regularly. It's a very rare occurrence, but when it happens, it happens. And I understand how important friendships are. This is a lesson that I constantly have to reiterate to myself. Not that I don't know that friendships are important, more like you have to be intentional in cultivating your friendships, in watering your friendships. You have to be very, very intentional about it. When you're growing up, when you're really young, friendships are very low effort. Like, you know that you see your friend in school, or when you get to church, you'll see your friend and you guys can pick off where you left off. However, in adulthood, it's a different ball game. You're experiencing each other's lives virtually, and you have to put in the time and the effort to let your friends know that they are not alone, that you think about them and they're in your thoughts and prayers. One thing that I used to do is that whenever I I have a thought about my friend, I pray immediately. I just pray for them. The problem now is when I pray for them, my brain automatically thinks that I've spoken with them and I forget to check up on them. I feel like I've done my due diligence in the spirit. However, I have to bring it forth physically. You have to be there for your friends. This lesson is one that I keep having to learn because it's not like I'm not, I just, I don't know. But thankfully, I have gotten to the point where I actually know how important friendships are, and they don't have to be a lot. You don't have to have 10,000 friends for you to feel like you have a lot of friends. I want to blame Facebook for this because why did in their UI and UX design, why did they think that everybody that follows you should be called your friends? Friend request. Like, friendship is very sacred and it's very important, and not just anybody should be your friend. And when you actually vet your friends, treat it with the utmost care and with the utmost diligence that it requires. Like, there's so many relationships that you need to cultivate, actively cultivate. And I'm not an expert in this by any way, shape, or form. My friends, I promise you, are tired of me, but they love me like that. But I am actually putting in effort to become better than I used to be. Because it's not like I don't love my friends, I love them so much. But um, life just happens, and I'm so overwhelmed and overcome with so many things happening at the same time, and I lose track of time with my friends. So do better. You do better. I would do better. Let's all do better at acknowledging the fact that friendships are important. Yeah. Our second lesson for today, for our seventh lesson overall, is that my good matters. When I say my good matters, I mean that despite all the evil in the world, it can feel so overwhelming, and we can feel like, what's the point in doing any good when it's just going to be like a drop in the ocean, dropping one drinkable water in an ocean full of salty water? What difference it's going to make? But I have learned that my good actually matters, no matter how small it is. It actually does matter. It makes a difference. If it can make a difference in the life of even one person, I don't know if there's anything like a half person or a quarter person, but if it can make that difference, then it is actually important, because every single soul, every single person is as important as the next. Some people's reach and some people's influence could be 1,000, could be 1,000,000, could be 10,000, could be tens of thousands of millions. But if yours is just the 10 people that view your WhatsApp status religiously, then know that you are important, and whatever you do, your good or your bad, is going to make a difference. Another facet of this is regards to you speaking and you adding your voice. I know that sometimes speaking and adding your voice can be like you're just part of the white noise, you're part of the plethora of people who have podcast mics and are talking and not really making sense. However, if it's impressed on your spirit to say something, say it. Even if one person would hear your voice and your voice would become the voice of reason that they're listening to, then you've done a good thing. You've done a great job, in fact. So don't let anybody make you feel like your good does not matter, and that we are those who do good are in the minority and therefore it doesn't matter. That's not how it works. It's only in a democracy that the majority wins. But in life, no matter how small you are, you're still big enough to make a difference. Okay? Okay. Okay. Our third lesson for today, which will make it our eighth lesson in general in this series, is that life happens in seasons. Everything in life happens in seasons. So, like, look at the world, for instance. There is summer, there's winter, there's fall, there's dry season, there's raining season, there's harmattan. There's a season to plant. There's a season to harvest. There's a season to prune. Life happens in seasons for every other species on earth. Why do you think you're different? Why do you think like your all the life that you're going to live has already happened? I hope you see the error in that. Life happens in seasons. There are steps to achieving things. There are periods where things will be dry, there are periods of plenty. That's the reason why you should never be stuck. Never get stuck in your successes, never get stuck in your failures, never get stuck in your season of waiting, never get stuck in your season of plenty, because life happens in seasons. And if you are building yourself just for fair weather, the Bible says that if your faith is shaking in the day of adversity, then there was really nothing much to you in the first place. I know that that's not the exact saying, but you get the point. The point is that like life happens in seasons and you should prepare for all of it. You should be ready for all of it. You don't thank God when you're having your miracles and your blessings and all of that, and curse him when you're going through trials and tribulations. It's a package. It comes in one, okay? Life happens in seasons. In another way, right? Life happens in seasons also means that you're not late. Your season is very different from another person's season. So it's very wrong for you to dictate how fast or how slow you are using the metrics of other people. Because at the end of the day, you will never know. Two orange trees can be planted at the same time and they will not produce fruit on the same day or even in the same year. That's how individualistic everything in life is. So why would you now compare yourself with other people and use other people's metrics and everything to judge yourself? You really do not know what's going on. You really do not know the trials and tribulations that they have fought and overcome before entering their own season of plenty. Even if they did not have to fight any battle, even if they did not have to go through any tribulation, that is their own path. Focus on your focus. Okay? Life happens in seasons. Whenever you discover whatever season you're in, all you have to do is ask God, what do you require of me in this season? What do I have to do in this season? If I'm in my waiting season, how do I wait that will please you? How do I stay in this season that I do not get discouraged, that I do not get depressed? How do I stay in this season that at the end of the day I would look back and say, okay, I utilized my time well, I utilized my waiting season well? Life happens in seasons. I feel like we're running through this video particularly faster than the last one. Okay, our fourth lesson, which will make it our eighth lesson for in this series, is that all things work together for good. Probably saw Romans 8:28 in part one of this video, and that's what it actually says. All things work together for good to them that love God and to them that are called according to his purpose. So, full disclosure, it's not just all things work together for good. It also has a requirement. It says to them that love God and are called according to his purpose. What this means is that if you're walking in God's purpose, whatever happens in the process is part of the process. It will make sense in the end. All things work together for good. So whatever the devil or the enemy meant for evil, God will mean it for good. When we look at our picture, the big picture, our good times, our bad times, our depression, all our seasons, flowing from the last lesson, all our seasons actually work towards a greater good. All our seasons actually work together for the betterment of your soul, for the betterment of yourself, and for the betterment of God's purpose. Remember that the superintending principle here is God's purpose. So whatever you're going through, just know, have it at the back of your mind, all things work together for good. On my TikTok, yeah, I just joined TikTok. Please find me and follow me, Ray Esquire. Instagram to Ray Esquire. But that's besides the point. On my TikTok, while I was creating my profile and everything, I just decided to add that I am a Romans 8:28 girly, and I felt so. If anybody seeing my profile would ever say, oh, what does Romans 8:28 say? I'm actually going to check the Bible. I would feel so good for them to see that reminder that actually all things work together for good. Fun fact, would it surprise you if I say that that's where the name of our channel flows from? All things, comma, Bray. It's like a code for me. It's like a coded reminder for me that whenever I see all things Bray, whenever I see the channel, whenever I see the podcast, it just reminds me to stay grounded. It just reminds me that all things actually do work together for good to them that love God and are called according to his purpose. That sounds like it is describing me. I don't know about you. If you're not sure, I think that enter my DM. Let's talk about that. But that verse describes me. And then if you read Romans 8:28, I hope you don't just stop there. If you can, just read the whole of Romans 8. Because down the line, he also says in that same Romans, he also says, nothing can separate me from the love of God. Not height, not depth, but he says a lot of things. Just read Romans 8. It has a lot packed for you there. But to reiterate, our lesson is that all things work together for good. I've learned that in so many practical ways. I was speaking with a friend the other day and I was just telling him stories from my NYC to my law school to everything that's happened after that. It just looked like a whole giant pile of domino cards. Like everything fell into place. Even the disappointments, even the delays, even the lapses, even the poor choices, everything. Literally everything worked together for good. So when you have that reminder, when you have that principle at the back of your mind, when you're going through things, you actually just go through them. Because the mindset I have is that I don't have to know the big picture. I don't have to know every single step of the way. But I know the one who does. I know the one who wrote this. I know the one who ordained this. And I trust him. Therefore, I trust my own process. I hope you can do that. If you're listening to this, if you're watching this, I hope that you remember that all things work together for good. And at the end of the day, you're going to see stuff and you're like, oh, that's why that happened. I get it now. Okay. Now, our fifth lesson for today, our fifth and final lesson, which will make it our 10th lesson in the general series, is that privilege is not always a bad thing. You say? I know some people are like, you say what? Yeah. Privilege is not always a bad thing. We are all privileged in so many different ways. I acknowledge the fact that some people are more privileged than others. However, you're more privileged than others in some ways. Other people are more privileged than you in other ways. Life always has a way of balancing things up. God always has a way of balancing things up. So privilege is not always a bad thing. But now, the kind of privilege I'm talking about or referring to in this particular context is, let's say you have money, let's say you have access, let's say you have connections and all of that. Let's say you're a nepo baby, a nepotism baby. It's not always a bad thing. It can be a bad thing when it's used to oppress others. However, there are certain doors that can only be opened from the inside. Did you hear that? There are certain tables that other people cannot sit on except someone on the table says, "Hey, this is my friend. I would like you to meet her. Her name is Bray and she does so, so, and so, and so." There are certain tables you cannot sit on unless you have someone that is already seated there. There are certain doors that cannot be opened unless they are opened from the outside, unless they're open from the inside. So if you have privilege, recognize that privilege and know that, okay, how can I use my privilege to help and uplift people rather than oppress them? That should be the debate, not trying to relinquish your privilege. Trust me when I say that privilege is not always a bad thing. Of course it can be. Of course it can. Most of the times, the oppressions we see in the society today is because people are abusing the privilege that they have. They're abusing the resources that they have. However, imagine how much better the world would be if everybody who had some sort of privilege understood that they have a responsibility to help people who are not in the position that they are in. The world would be a much better place, don't you think? The world would be an excellent place. So, I need you to go with this lesson that privilege is not always a bad thing. Recognize the privilege that you have and utilize it to help people who are not as privileged as you are. Oh, now that is 5 lessons in part 2. 5 lessons. I hope that this series is getting very interesting. We have 3 more parts to go, but I'm going to just reiterate the 5 lessons that we have learned today. The first lesson is that friendships are important. I hope you took that home, that friendships are very important. Also, the second lesson that we learned today is that your good matters. The good things that you do are not without consequence. They actually do matter. The third lesson that we learned is that life happens in seasons. So don't use your beans to compare another person's custard. Custard is 2 minutes. Your beans, no matter how long it takes. Not to say your beans is better or custard is worse or anything. It's just different. Same way life happens in seasons and has different times for manifestation. Okay? Our fourth lesson that we learned is that all things work together for good. And while we learned that, we also learned that the full phrase is all things work together for good for them that love God and are called according to his purpose. So ask yourself, do you love God? Are you called according to his purpose? Then rest assured that all things will work together for your good. And the last lesson that we learned in today's video is that privilege is not always a bad thing. So disabuse yourself of the mindset that everybody that is privileged is a bad person. Oh, rich people are bad. Rich people are this. Hush, hush. Privilege is not always a bad thing. There's some doors that can only be opened from the inside. So if you're in a privileged position, ask yourself, how can I help the people who cannot be in my position. That is the end of this video. I'm so glad. I'm already feeling hyped for the remaining videos, and I hope that you're as hyped as I am. If any of the lessons resonated with you, please let me know in the comment section. I will be there chatting with you. We can continue the conversation over on Instagram at Bray Esquire and on TikTok at Bray Esquire. You can follow our Instagram account also at all_things_Bray. I'm so excited. I don't know if you can tell. Okay, so until next time, make sure you remember that all things work together for good. It's your girl Bray, and stay blessed. Okay, bye.